Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, Chapter 3, Karma Yoga, Text 13. Yagya Shishtasano Santo Mujante Sarva Kilvishai Punjante Tetva Papa Ye Pachantyat Karanat. Somebody can chant. Yagya Shishtasano Santo Mujante Sarva Kilvishai Punjante Tetva Papa Ye Pachantyat Karanat. Yagya Shishta, a food taken after performance of yagya. Ashina, eaters. Santa, the devotees. Mujante, get relief. Sarva, all kinds of. Kilabhishi, from sins. Bunjate, enjoy. Te, they, too, but. Agam, grievous sins. Papa, sinners. Ye, who. Pachanti, prepare food. Atmakadanat, for sense enjoyment. The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sin. Purport: the devotees of the Supreme Lord, or the persons who are in Krishna consciousness, are called santas, and they are always in love with the Lord, as it is described in the Brahma Samhita 5:38. Premanjana churita bhakti valochanena santa sadaiva hrideshu valokayanti yam shama sundanamachinta gunasarupam govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. The santas, being always in a compact of love with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, the giver of all pleasures, or Mukunda, the giver of liberation, or Krishna, the all-attractive person, cannot accept anything without first offering it to the Supreme Person. Therefore, such devotees always perform yagyas and different modes of devotional service, such as Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Archanam, etc. And these performances of yagyas keep them always aloof from all kinds of contamination of sinful association in the material world. Others who prepare food for self or sense gratification are not only thieves, but also the eaters of all kinds of sins. How can a person be happy if he is both a thief and sinful? It is not possible. Therefore, in order for people to become happy in all respects, They must be taught to perform the easy process of Sankirtan Yajna in full Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, there can be no peace or happiness in the world. So we're on chapter 3, text 13, for those of you who have just joined us. And text one more time. Yagya Shishtashino Santo Ujante Sarva Kilbashai Ujante Te Twagam Papa Ye Pachantyat Makadanat. Alright. So the Bhagavatam gives the analogy that the human form of life is like a boat. It's a boat to cross over the ocean of nescience. The human form is considered the superior form to all other lower animal, plant life, aquatic life, etc., because the humans have a special inherent intelligence where they can discuss knowledge and philosophy, and that intelligence was actually given as a gift from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, primarily to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But unfortunately, people use that superior intelligence in so many variety of mundane material activities. And you could see how the dogs cannot speak, they cannot have a lengthy conversation with language and words from a dictionary. They cannot build buildings or drive cars, but humans can do all these things. They can record things on the television, etc., because that intelligence is higher, but it's misdirected. So this human form is compared to the boat, and the spiritual master is compared to the captain of the boat. Because the humans have two births. They have one birth from the mother, and then their next birth is from the spiritual master, who is the eternal Father. And it says that the Vedas, the Shastra, is actually the favorable winds that the spiritual master knows how to take advantage of the favorable winds to help that boat, that human form, to cross the ocean of nescience. And we notice on a boat, the thing that makes it steer one way or another is actually in the back. You have a whole big boat, and in the very back you have a very small little part called the rudder. It's not big at all. It's the size of this table is probably maybe even bigger, or probably about the same size as a rudder for a really big boat. And this rudder can be compared to the tongue. It actually even kind of looks like the tongue a little bit. It's shaped like a tongue. So depending on which way you control the rudder is going to depend which way that boat is going to go. So if you control the rudder correctly, that boat will get you to your destination. So in the same way, yoga actually begins with the tongue. If you can control the tongue, you can actually control all your other senses, and therefore take full advantage of the human form of life. And we sing every day, at least twice a day, a prayer by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, unless you're fasting for the day. Sharida Vijaja. And there's a joke I've heard devotees say, but could be relevant. I've heard people say that there's one mantra for sleeping. If anybody mantra, they'll fall asleep. And this mantra is Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Because when everybody's sitting down ready to hear a class, sometimes the tendency is that somehow your brain malfunctions and your eyes get heavy and you fall asleep. But there's one mantra that wakes everybody up, is Sharirad Vijaja is happy to take prasadam, and that nobody falls asleep during prasadam. So this yajna is not difficult. It's actually very easy. You don't have to give up anything except for completely gross, disgusting things that you wouldn't are abominable to eat anyways. But you can eat everything else, and you just offer it to the Supreme before you eat it. It says here that you become free from all sorts of sins, because even if you're a vegetarian, but you do not offer your food to Krishna, it is still sinful. That's why in the last sentence, the last 4 words of this verse, it says, they verily eat only sin. Verily means it's either more or less sinful. Of course, if we eat abominable things like dead carcasses in the form of animals, that's extremely sinful, especially cow. But if you're a vegetarian, it's still sinful, but it's less sinful than eating the animal. But we are not necessarily vegetarians. We're prasadam-atarians. We take prasadam. And I remember Srila Prabhupada, I heard, made the point that we're not concerned with being vegetarians, but Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Patram pushpam palam tvayam yo me bhaktya pranashati, that if one offers me a leaf, a fruit, a flower, or water, I will accept it very happily. So Prabhupada was making the point that we are actually only interested in pleasing Krishna, and so now we know what pleases Krishna is fruit and milk and things like that the Bhagavad Gita explained. So that's why we eat those things. If Krishna would to say, he wouldn't say that because he doesn't like it, but if he were to say, offer me meat, then we would do that because we're following Krishna. But obviously he doesn't want that to happen. He doesn't enjoy those things. So a person who eats for personal sense enjoyment, he verily eats only sin. And the whole idea, what a boomerang is? Everybody knows. It's like a sort of, I guess you could call it like a toy, like a children's toy. It's shaped in a certain way that when you throw it, and somehow or another it's designed that it goes and somehow it turns around and it comes back to you and you're supposed to catch it. It's called a boomerang. So that's kind of like action. When you throw the action out, it comes back to you in the form of a reaction. So that's only if you perform action for personal sense enjoyment. It's like a boomerang. But when you offer that boomerang to Krishna, you offer that action to Krishna, instead of it coming back to you, Krishna catches it. And then you're playing with Krishna instead of trying to play with yourself and try to enjoy yourself. So self-enjoyment, this whole consciousness of I want to be the enjoyer, is sinful. It's a sin. And one definition of sin is archery. You know what archery is? It's when, like bow and arrow, people do it for sport sometimes. They have like a target. They're trying to hit the middle, the bullseye, and so they're shooting the arrows. In archery, actually, if you miss the target, then the referee or whatever, they say sin. It actually means that you missed the target. That's an archery. So same thing applies. Is a sin is when you miss the target, when you miss the point. So the human form of life, being specifically designed to go back home, back to Godhead, if we identify ourselves with the body and we're more concerned with personal sense enjoyment than going back to Godhead, then it's missing the point. It's a sin. You miss the target. Just like if you were driving in a vehicle and you started identifying with the vehicle, and you lost track that actually I'm driving this vehicle to get to a destination so I can perform important duties, that you got sidetracked and you thought that the goal of life was to fill up your tank full of gas and just drive around and look at the nice scenery, then you have missed the point. You have sinned. So this human form of life is also a responsibility, because this human form, you get sinful reactions. The animals and the plants, they do not get sinful reactions. They're actually playing out their bad karma in their animal life. They're burning up their bad karma. Similarly, also with the heavenly planets or the hellish planets, if you're in heaven, you do not get any reaction to your activities. You're actually just burning up your pious karma. And when that pious karma is burnt up, then you come back to this Martyloka, mid-planetary system, or that's where we are on Earth. Similarly, in the hellish planets, you do not get any reaction. You're just burning up your sinful karma, and then similarly, when that gets burned up, you come back here. So this middle planetary system is actually like a pivot point, from where you prepare to go next. Just like in America, we have public transportation, or buses, like city buses. What happened? I don't know if you guys have that in India. I know you guys have trains and everything. I don't know how that works, but the idea is a bus. What it does is it stops at certain areas throughout the city, and if you're at that specific area, that means you need to hop on the bus. So the bus all day, the driver's duty, his job, he gets paid for it. He stops at different locations. People get on the bus, and he takes them to their destination. So at the end of the day, all those buses throughout the city, there's many of them, they all meet back at one place where all the buses park. And then in the next day, they all kind of veer out and they go to their specific destinations. So in the same way, this earthly realm is like that bus station, that you start off there and you go to your specific destinations. When your karma is burnt up, you come back to that bus terminal, final destination place. So basically, I was just trying to make the point that this human form is the only form that we get